Brainrider is a B2B marketing agency and a Pardot partner. And we work with B2B companies who are trying to get the most out of B2B marketing tools, content, and programs. We actually went through a fairly long evaluation process, and we can use a number of different tools. We have Pardot as one of our favorites because it's actually a really great balance of usability, price point. There's no contract commitment, so you don't feel like you're pressured into signing up for something that you have to use for a year or 2 years at a time. And it's user-friendly without being too dumbed down, right? There's still a lot of power in the features. There's a lot of richness in the capability without having to know how to do a lot of programming and coding. Price point's brilliant. The price point for Pardot is really second to none that we've seen in the marketplace. What you get for what you pay, and the fact that you don't need to commit to a long-term contract are really both big positives for Pardot. Pardot fits in well in a lot of scenarios because it's pretty scalable. It can accommodate companies that are not really spending on any sort of paid marketing but doing a lot of guerrilla stuff, a lot of self-generated traffic. But it also scales up to track all sorts of external campaigns. So if you're doing online advertising, if you're doing affiliate programs, if you're doing offline events and trade shows, all that stuff is also very trackable in the system. So Pardot really does a good job of addressing really light first-time users, but also scaling up to pretty complex marketing scenarios. There's always nuances to the way every client does their marketing and does their sales, and the tool can't be implemented exactly the same way for every client. And you don't really learn that until you try to implement it over and over again and tailor it and tune it to a specific scenario or a specific problem or specific types of content and programs. And we've learned through doing that a number of times that Pardot actually has a lot of flexibility in that regard. Pardot is a very template-driven system. So you can set up your brand template and your brand presence inside the Pardot tool once and then reuse it every time you do a landing page, every time you do another outbound email. And so it's really great in terms of being able to keep that under control and keep things consistent. Once you get a tool like Pardot in place and you've got the marketing automation system in place, it gives you a lot of latitude to experiment with things. To experiment with things on a small scale, to experiment with things on a large scale. But you can try a lot of different things without spending a lot of money and start to see where your upticks and downticks and results are. And it becomes much more iterative. I think every system has its strengths and weaknesses. Some of them take a long time to implement and a long time to get working the way you want. Pardot's one of those hit the ground running kind of tools. Implementation is literally like 2 or 3 weeks from start to finish, and you're up and running on the system, starting to collect data, starting to make decisions based on that data. So, the time from decision to use the tool to up and running with the tool is very, very compressed, and that's a big win for companies that don't have a lot of time to plan and implement before they start seeing results. I think that people are a little bit nervous sometimes that they're going to get a whole bunch of new data that they don't know what to do with. And some of them may even think we're going to expose some problems that were otherwise hidden because there wasn't data to show what exactly was going on. But at the end of the day, that data helps you make smarter decisions, and it helps you focus your marketing efforts and ultimately have more productive conversations with your sales team as well. So don't be afraid of the data that you're going to have access to. Embrace it. I think there's a lot of different marketing automation options in the market right now. Different price points, different feature sets, different implementation costs and implementation efforts, different levels of complexity in terms of what you can do with them. So make sure that you understand what you're trying to accomplish with a marketing automation tool before you pull the trigger and buy one. And make sure that you don't get yourself into some sort of a commitment that you don't need to make, because your needs will change. You'll learn things about marketing automation tools that you can only learn once you're using one. And so don't get into a long-term commitment that you can't get out of.